and welcome to this bite-sized technical video on the annual allowance. When it comes to making pension contributions, we often get asked, what's the most I can put in? Theoretically, the answer is as much as you like, but what most people really want to know is the maximum they can put in and benefit from tax relief, and importantly, without incurring additional tax charges. We look at the rules for getting tax relief on personal and employer contributions in separate bite-sized videos. But in order to ensure there's no additional tax charge, the annual allowance must also be considered. So what is the annual allowance? The annual allowance is a cap on the total amount paid into pensions for an individual's benefit in a single tax year. It includes any money paid in personally, plus the associated tax relief from HMRC that goes directly into the pension, any contributions paid in by the employer, and if anyone else pays in, that would also be included, again plus the associated tax relief from HMRC. If benefits are being built up in a defined benefit or final salary pension scheme, the benefits accrued each year also count. For most people, the annual allowance is now £60,000. This is up from £40,000 that applied previously. However, anyone with high income, over £200,000 a year from investments as well as earnings, may have their annual allowance tapered to a lower amount. We'll do a separate bite-sized video on tapered annual allowance to cover the details. It's also the case that once pensions have been accessed, a lower annual allowance may apply. This is known as the Money Purchase Annual Allowance, or MPAA, and is now £10,000. If only the tax-free element of a pension is accessed or a secure income is taken in the form of an annuity or scheme pension, then the full £60,000 annual allowance will still apply. Again, we'll do a separate video going into more detail on the MPAA. So, back to the main annual allowance. When calculating how much of the annual allowance has been used up, it's important to include all pension contributions, including the tax relief paid by HMRC directly into the pension. Also, don't forget any auto-enrolment contributions being made via the employer, because these can often get overlooked. If pension savings of more than the annual allowance are made in one tax year, then an annual allowance charge may apply. This isn't always the case though, as it may be possible to carry forward unused allowances from up to 3 previous tax years. We'll talk about carry forward separately. We'll also look at how the annual allowance charge is calculated if it does apply, and look at the various ways it can be paid, including from pension savings. An important point to note is that the annual allowance does not restrict tax relief. That might sound a bit odd, but tax relief on pension contributions and the annual allowance are 2 separate things to consider when deciding how much can be paid into a pension in a tax-efficient manner. Regardless of annual allowance available, personal contributions cannot exceed 100% of UK relevant earnings in the tax year. If the available annual allowance is exceeded, then tax relief should still be claimed in the usual way. So for personal contributions under relief at source, this would usually be by completing a self-assessment. However, there will also be an annual allowance charge to pay. In relation to personal contributions, the charge will broadly recoup the tax relief received on the contribution above the annual allowance. This will be payable regardless of whether the tax relief is being claimed, which is why it's so important to claim the tax relief in the first place. So, to recap, the annual allowance is a limit on the total savings made to all pensions for an individual in any tax year. For most people, the allowance will be £60,000, and if this is exceeded, a tax charge will apply. We cover the more awkward tapered and money purchase annual allowances separately, plus how to use carry forward and how to calculate and pay the annual allowance charge.